Today on the show, in our brand builder segment, we have Kevin and Emmanuel from Puro Tepache. So, gentlemen, why don't you introduce yourself? Emmanuel, you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Emmanuel Casasola. I was born in Mexico City, but my parents immigrated here when I was 1 year old. So I tell everybody I'm from San Antonio because that's the only place that I've ever called home. Married to a wonderful ex-teacher because she now stays at home with our two beautiful boys. I have an 8-year-old and a 7-month-old. My 9 to 5, outside of the 5 to 9, both Kevin and I work for BioBridge Global, which is a nonprofit here in town that focuses on blood banking, testing, and advanced therapy developing. So, but yeah, Puro Tepache is kind of what we do to keep ourselves even busier.
Nice. Kevin?
Yeah. My name's Kevin Rodriguez. Born and raised here in San Antonio. Grew up off of Culebra and 36th Street, so on the west side. Like Emmanuel says, we both work together at BioBridge Global, a local nonprofit. I'm also married. I have 2 kids, a 9 and a 4-year-old about to turn 5. So I don't have that big gap like Emmanuel. I didn't jump in for another one there. Yeah, I feel you, brother. I don't sleep. But yeah, yeah, like you said, we love what we do and we do what we love, right? So that's why we're here.
Well, great. Welcome. So tell us about Puro Tepache.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I like it. You want me to start off, Kevin?
Go for it, brother.
All right. Well, Tepache is the original Mexican soda. It comes from pre-Columbia, Mexico. You know, the Aztecs used to make a drink called tepatli, which was a fermented corn product. But over the years, it kind of transformed into what tepache is now, which is a fermented drink using primarily pineapple rinds as one of its main ingredients. Puro Tepache was born last year, and we wanted to set out to make the most authentic and delicious tepache in the U.S. market. There are tepache brands that are available right now, but ours, we stick to 6 simple ingredients, simple, authentic product, pure product, which is, the name Puro. It's honest, authentic, right? But it's also that San Antonio culture, that Puro culture, right? And so, it's I go back to it being the original soda, and when you drink Puro Tepache, it's a carbonated drink, but it has those probiotic benefits that a fermented product will have, that'll help support a healthy digestive system. We try to keep the sugar content low, so it's only 90 calories. We use monk fruit as a sweetener so that it's not as bad for you as a soda is. It offers that functionality without the funk. That was something that coined by Kevin, right? Function without the funk. And so, yeah, it's just it's something that we're really excited about, right? There's nothing, I think, in the market that tastes the way it is, that it's authentic as it is, as Puro Tepache. And we're trying to really just grow it and build it. It's a work of love for both Kevin and I. We are both, I think, utilizing the skill sets that we've had over our career that span both food and the microbiological and pharma backgrounds that we have. I don't know, Kevin, did I miss anything there?
Yeah, no, I think you knocked it out the park. I think one thing I'll add is that, when one of the things that, we love about Puro Tepache in general is, like Emmanuel said, we leverage pineapple rinds to make it. And so San Antonio has a rich culture, especially in the food scene, and the idea of like fruit cups and fruterias and things like that. And so partnering with food processors to salvage those rinds, to rescue them from going to a landfill and to make a product. And then not only is it, like you said, it's functional, but it's delicious and it's part of our identity. But afterwards, we're able to take all the byproduct of those brews and then compost them. So we're proud to say that we're a zero waste product. And so it's not just about having a business, but it's about doing business better. And for us, that's our way of doing it, is how do we make sure that it's not only good for our people, but for our environment as well.
Yeah, and our tagline really is taste the culture. It's a double entendre. It's a culturally derivative product, something that, like I said, comes from its original roots in Mexico, but it's also that culture, that bacterial culture, that people will get that benefit from. So when you see Puro Tepache, taste the culture, it's that both sides of it, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that before.
Yeah.
I'll
Pretty
throw that one
clever,
at
but
Kevin again. That's a Kevin original. When he first told me, I was like, "Oh my god, that's brilliant!" And everybody who we kind of explained it to, they're like, "Oh wow,
Yeah.
now I get it." Like, yeah, that's the basis behind
I
it.
promise you, Keith, though, man, they're not all winners. I mean, I strike out a lot. So you just heard the lucky ones.
For sure. Our original name was not Puro Tepache. Our
what
original
was it?
name. So when we first kind of were thinking, hey, let's stand this up off the ground. Um, Kevin and I have the quintessential office bromance, right? We're friends outside of work, and I was just like, hey, let's call ourselves Los Brochachos Tepache, and it's like bro and muchachos put together.
I
Um,
gotcha.
we went to a entrepreneurial boot camp in October of last year, and this was out at Geekdom, which is a great resource here in San Antonio. And they partner you up with mentors throughout the weekend. And one of the mentors was like, "You might want to do something about the name. You don't want to alienate half of your potential market or more than half of your potential market." And I'm so glad that he told us that. And Put Up the Podcast is what was born. But when I look at our demographics, like on our social media, on followers, and the people actually buying the product, it's 2/3 women.
Yeah.
And if we had stuck with our name Los Brochachos, I don't know that it would be as appealing to our tremendous female supporters that we have. So I'm really glad that we changed our name.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah. So that's interesting. How long did it take you to kind of figure out that 2/3 of your customers are actually women?
Yeah, it's based off of the social media engagement that we have. For entrepreneurs that are looking at how are they going to find out what their clientele looks like. Um,
Yeah.
the social media platforms, both Facebook and Instagram, are the primarily ones we use. They break it down for you very well. They give you little dashboards, and they break down demographics by age and by gender, by geographic regions and stuff like that. And I think the more the higher you get in the number of followers and post engagements, the more granular that data can be. And so Kevin and I have not. I mean, I use social media, but I am not by far a influencer or anything like that. It's been one of the biggest, I think, education things both Kevin and I have had to deal with is how to leverage social media for our business to grow our business. So, like, we had to really learn how to buy ads, right? And which kind of ads do we want? Do we want the ads that take them to our website, or do we want the ads that just highlight one of our partners that are carrying the brand? Do we want to drive them to our Facebook page? And really, we're still learning it.
Yep.
We definitely have reached out to a couple of social media influencers who do have a large following, and have come to an arrangement with them of well, if they make a video featuring the Tepache, and stuff like that. So it's just one of those things that we have to educate our market about what Tepache is, and social media is such a great avenue for that.
So let's talk a little bit more about social media. I know for me personally, it was very scary at first, especially since I'm a solopreneur. So just me being the face of the product and getting out there and you know posting content and just having this fear that like people are going to be like, what, who is this guy, right? Like, what is he doing? um but it's also a lot of work. And
Hmm.
so I'm curious, do y'all manage and create all of your own social media content?
Yeah, and that's primarily my side of the division of labor. So, you know, Kevin is really our operational brewmaster. He's the one that, all of the equipment that we have, he picked out. The recipe that we have, he perfected. So, from an operational standpoint and manufacturing standpoint, that's Kevin's realm. And so, I took on more the how do we uh, what's the narrative behind Puro Tepache, right? How do we want to present our brand to the public? And so I'm the one that manages the Instagram account, the Facebook account. Now, one of the big things that Kevin really drives is our chisme on our website. And so our chisme, which in Spanish is just the gossip, right? It's kind of our gossip column, but it's a blog. And if you have time to look at our chisme on our website, you see a lot of personal stories. We share a lot of reflection, vulnerability, things that come from our past and why we do the things that we do. Like, Kevin talks about doing business better, right? He talks about a lot of those points in our chisme. So those have been really good for us to link on our social medias, right? Hey, check out the latest Chisme post. Events that we have, whether they're farmers market, pop up events, tasting events, demo events, we'll put on our social medias. What the latest thing that I've been really trying to do is our partners that are carrying the product, trying to reshare their stuff as well. And so if it's a restaurant and they're having this post about something, hey, reshare it. And then also our local CPG community. We've become really close with some of those people. Primarily like Mita Matcha, that makes a great matcha. They create a lot of content. I reshare some of that stuff as well. So it's kind of been multi-pronged approach. And then we buy ads very selectively, right? When we launch a new partner, we'll put out an ad announcing, hey, we have a new partner that's selling Puro Tepache. If it's, some kind of event. So we sponsored Volcan's 10th anniversary concert back in October of last year. And so we bought a lot of ads promoting that event as well. And Volcan was so gracious with, really promoting it on their end as well. And we felt like it was just such a perfect fit what they're doing and what we're trying to do. So yeah, we create all the content. We're trying to be as selective as we can, but like you said, it does take up a lot of time, and it's one of those things that, as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to carve out time to do it, or else you're kind of, if you go silent, people are just going to forget about you, and so you can't ever go silent. But you also can't inundate. You can't post every 5 minutes because then the algorithm's also going to kick you off. So you got to just be kind of patient, selective, strategic about what it is you're doing on social media.
Very tactical. Yep.
Yeah. And so what has been your growth strategy in terms of social media?
So some of it has just been uh, education of what our product is. And so, on our Instagram, you'll see photos of us when we're canning, when we're brewing, so that people can see this is a real product that's manufactured here in San Antonio. We're not, co-packing it somewhere like in Idaho and then bringing it back here to San Antonio to sell. We're making it here. I try to post a lot of engagement with Kevin and myself. We're primarily the ones that are manufacturing and representing the product and the brand, and so I try to post us as often as I can. So really, to get people to know us, right? To feel like they know us personally, and then just the social media influencers that we have engaged with, they've been tremendous. One that he runs the Viva Texas official page, right? He's the Brahma Mariachi. His name is Jorge. He's been so gracious with not only a video about what Tepache is, but then also where he introduces Tepache to people who are not of Mexican ancestry, right? So they may be of another ethnicity. It's like, hey, what do you think of this and stuff like that? So, those have been kind of our growth strategies up to date, and then the strategic buys on ads, where we really focus it in on within a 5 mile radius of San Antonio. We're not going to try to buy an ad for somebody in Illinois because they won't be able to purchase our product. So it's okay within 5 miles of downtown because that's where our primary um, partners are. Although now I will say we have one going out towards Bernie that we just partnered with. And so we're starting to stretch out the map of where Puro Tepache's coverage is little by little. And I know that Austin won't be too far away as well.
All right. I'm ready for it. Bring it on. Cool. So, all right. So Kevin, I want to ask you a little bit more about the operations side of things. So, um, do you have a background in operations? Like, how did you guys figure out how to start brewing your own beverage?
Yeah, so it was kind of trial and error to start out. So the story about how we kind of started Puro Tepache in general was, Emmanuel. I mean, actually, you want to start that portion off real quick, Emmanuel, and I'll jump in about how we started.
The origin story goes back to, I said I have a 7 month old. We were going through IVF to have him. My
Uh,
wife and I had the one son, but we really wanted to grow our family, and we weren't having success. And so we were going through IVF treatments, and my wife read online through social media and other platforms, the pineapple has, a enzyme in it, and then also it helps reduce inflammation, and so it can, help with the fertility treatments and stuff like that. And so we were eating like a pineapple every 3 days, right? And so every time I was cutting this pineapple, the peels were coming off, and I remember thinking to myself, man, I need to make tepache. And I told Kevin this at work. I was like, man, we're eating so much pineapple. I need to learn how to make tepache. And he was like, let's figure it out. I'll let you take it from there, Kevin.
Yeah, no, I mean, before I even said let's figure it out, I had to get schooled real quick. And so Emmanuel kind of was like, well, tepache is this drink from Central Mexico. They're on the street corners. And so I was like, the hell's that? So I remember going home, looked it up. I started reading on tepache and how it's this culturally indigenous beverage from it's an Aztec beverage, pre-Columbian, and its roots in Mexican culture. And being Mexican American, I always felt like it was one of those things that I was born in the States, and I'll be honest, I don't speak Spanish, and so I always got that kind of rap growing up in school where it's like, well, you're not a real Mexican, you don't speak Spanish, and so I always felt like it was one of those. Like not an identity crisis, but I always felt like it was one of those like I wanted to be more connected, but I really just didn't know how to go about that. And so, with that being said, I started just kind of playing around with the pache and then figuring out how do I make this, and started looking at just recipes from Central Mexico and trying to make it at home. And full disclosure, the first like 30 or 40 batches were rough. I mean, I would bring them to work. And if you've ever had a fermented beverage that's over carbonated, I mean, these things would like explode, and in my office, and then it would have a little bit of a funk to it. And the man was always great. I mean, he goes, "Oh, it's getting better." I knew it was bad, but I was like, "Oh well, it is what it is." And so from there, share our quality backgrounds actually started playing off at first. Okay, why isn't this working the way that we want it to work? And then we finally just started taking the variability out. Okay, so if we take out the variability in order to make it a consistent product, what does that look like? Okay, where are all the variabilities at? And so we just kept brewing, taking out variability one after another, one after another. And so finally we had this product that we were able to make consistent. It tasted amazing. It had all the functional benefits of like a kombucha, but it doesn't have that funky taste to it. And I started bringing that to work, and just people, it was a knockout. People loved it. And it was through that process I also started feeling like I was connecting to something that it's kind of something that I felt like I always wanted, and I never knew what to call it, but it was like a connection to this ancestry or this culture that I feel like I just didn't have. And knowing that like I'm not the only person that feels this way, knowing that Emmanuel, who's had it growing up, isn't able to find something that's as authentic to as what he had growing up, it's when the idea of starting this business really kind of kicked off. I worked in quality for food manufacturing at HEB. So I was one of those lucky guys that got to wear, the white coat and work for Creamy Creations ice cream. So I got to walk around literally ice cream all day. So it was great. Got really fat. My wife was pissed. It was great.
Man, I'm envious.
Yeah, it's great. It's great until you guys start going to buy new pants and stuff. You're like, oh, this isn't working out for me. And then Emmanuel worked in food quality as well. From there, we just started doing research in terms of, okay, this is what our current process looks at. Like, this is the equipment that exists. How do we leverage the equipment that currently exists in order to match our processes? Because we know that the quality is in the process, right? And so we don't want to forsake the process just to make things easier. And then by forsaking the process, we forsake the quality. And so it was from there, just put our thinking caps on and start really brainstorming, drawing out plans. Okay, this is what we need, and also doing it in a manner in which we're a startup company. We're trying to save money where we can, and we don't want to overbuy and then not have the market for it. So especially last year, when in terms of buying our equipment, we're very very small. We're still under 1 barrel, which a barrel is like 32 gallons. And so 2024 is definitely the year of proof of concept. So showing that there is that demand out there. We actually started off by just brewing and then kegging, and so we took kind of a hard class ourselves in terms of just, okay, how do you keg? How do you ensure that you have its consistent carbonation across all the beverages? What does that look like in terms of not only cleaning but sterilizing? And luckily, right now, in terms of our pharma background, we have a lot of background in aseptic technique in terms of how do we manage microflora and micro growth in general, and how do we leverage that in terms of what we're looking for in our product. With that being said, we started getting it right in terms of the kegging, and then started working these events. And the feedback we were getting at these events, where we would have people that one either knew Tepache and would rush over to us to try it out, and then from there they were just buying it by it was only draft, so they just be come back. We had one guy, I remember at one of our events at Arbor Park. He came back 6 times, and then we had people who had no idea what it was, and then they got to try it, and then I could kind of see that they were getting that connection as well. So like that culture, or like people were getting it for the health benefits because of the probiotics, but it's not that like the funky taste that like other probiotic rich drinks give them. And the big feedback that I took back after the first month was, I love this, and I wish I could take it home. And do you guys sell this in stores? Do you guys sell this in like 6 packs? And so we always have to tell them, like, I'm sorry, we're just in draft right now. We're just doing these farmers markets, but be sure to follow us. And after being in farmers markets for like 2 to 3 months, I think I started like knocking on the man. I was like, hey, we need to get into cans. What does that look like? And I started doing the research, and come to find out that in terms of working with co-packers, co-packers are great, but co-packers also have really high minimum order quantities. Being a startup, when a co-packer tells you that the smallest that they'll do is between like 4 to 10,000 units, it's kind of like, okay, well, I know we have a market for that, but how long will it take us to move that much with the slice of the market that we currently have, which is an incredibly tiny slice? And so we put the thinking caps back on. Okay, what do we need, and then how do we get by in terms of our resources? We want to be mindful of our resources, respectful of those, and make sure that if we spend all of our money on one piece of equipment, then we have no way to market. We have no way to like, what if something happens? So from there, we started just like putting together our own canning line. So we worked with October Canning Designs. We worked with a company out of California called Express Fuel to make some custom equipment, all very small scale, all very what we need at the time. And so every can that you purchase at Puro Tepache is canned by Emmanuel and myself and Mondo, the guy who's not here, but he works with us as well. But it allows us to say, okay, we can do 100, 200 can runs, fill our orders without having this excessive inventory overhead. So we're not paying for inventory just to store cans. On top of that, we are able to ensure that all of our products are high quality because they meet our the founder's quality stamp of approval, and it's always fresh.
Mhm.
We're always making to order. Um, what we did not expect to happen is that there were a lot of individuals who are in our situation that they have cafes, they have other microbreweries, they're kombucha companies that are just like, they're like us, where they all would like to be in cans or in packaging, but they do not have the ability to, or the willingness to risk buying the minimum quantities necessary to work with co-packers. So yeah, they approached us, and so now we also offer small scale co-packing services. So to help small businesses, who are in our place have an opportunity to get their products out there, to test out their markets and determine, hey, is a risk like 4,000 units worth it in terms of kind of betting it all. So yeah, I guess to answer
Wow.
all that, it's one of those that we, especially as an entrepreneur, you're gonna hit hurdles, and I can guarantee you that you're gonna hit hurdles that you have no idea are there or coming around the corner. People are always looking for a life raft or a safety vest in life, and I think the best thing you can rely on in terms of like a safety vest as an entrepreneur, as in life, is bank on your character and bank on your willingness to figure it out and keep pushing forward. And I guarantee you, if you're willing to bank on yourself, push forward, and then figure it out, the resources are out there, and you'll figure it out.
I
Yeah, and
love
I
that.
think another thing about that story is that, sometimes as an entrepreneur, you're thinking, hey, I think this is the right path.
Mm,
And so for us, that was kegs, right? Our phase one to market was kegs. I honestly, I'll admit, I thought we could go into a restaurant and say, here's a keg of tepache, put it on your tap line, people will buy it, right? But what I didn't expect is restaurants to be very hesitant to give up tap lines and to say, I don't want to put on a new tap line just for your product. So while we were doing very well at farmers markets and pop up events, we weren't moving into restaurants and things like that. And so, Kevin really read where, our clients are kind of telling us to go to, and that was the canning. And so as an entrepreneur, you got to kind of listen to what your clients are asking you for and be okay letting go of that predisposition of this is what I think is right, and knowing that the time is crucial for you to pivot and make that swing over. And that's, I really credit Kevin for having that foresight mid-year last year and saying we got to get into canning, or else this isn't going to go anywhere with just you and me at markets every weekend.
mhm,
We really need our product to be making some kind of revenue while we're not working it. And so once we got it into cans, we got into our first customer was a coffee shop, Oya Express,
mhm,
that's off of Quincy Street. And Andrea over there at Oya Express has been phenomenal as a mentor of ours, but also as just a good partner for us. And it just kind of started falling with other places, whether it's a vegan taco shop or a barbecue place or other coffee shops, being able to have that ready to drink option for them. And so that was a lesson that we learned. We got to listen to our clients and tell and see what our clients are telling us.
Yeah, that's great. I've got so many questions. I mean, that was y'all said a ton that really kind of resonated with me that I really want to follow up on. And so the first one is, being able to pivot, like going
mm,
into it with a preconceived idea of how you think things are going to go, but then really listening and being able to pivot when you see those signs, as you said.
Mhm.
And so I think that for me, when I started Fresh Halo, I had this idea of, how I thought everything was going to go. And at one point, when things were not going the way that I had
yeah.
anticipated, I was ready. I was almost going to quit. But I didn't, because I felt like there's still more that I can do. I haven't done everything. I haven't tried everything yet. So before I throw in the towel, let me try everything. And for me, that was going to the markets. selling at, markets and pop-up events and things like that. And so, talk to me about what that experience was like, what you learned from that experience.
So the question is, what did we learn from like going to the markets?
Yeah, so you talked about early on you started selling at markets,
Yes.
um, and how did yeah, just talk to me a little bit more
Yeah.
about how that, like what you learned from that and how that might have impacted your trajectory going forward. And
Yeah.
I know, Emmanuel, you already talked about it a little bit with listening to your customers, but yeah, let's dig in there.
So full transparency, our first market was we had a canopy, and I don't think we had. It's just like just thinking about all the errors that we had. We had a canopy, and I don't think we had weights on the canopy. I don't know if you remember that, Emmanuel. And so we didn't have
Yeah.
weights. We had a little like we have a like a 12-foot
Evan was
table,
standing like
and
this,
so I
holding
yeah,
onto it.
so I'm just holding it like we need to get weights. And the table was massive, so unnecessarily massive. I don't know if we even had chairs. I think we might have had chairs at the time, and I don't.
We had chairs.
We had chairs. We had no price sign. So I don't know if you remember that. People were like, "Well, how do we know what it is and what's the price?" And we're like, "Oh, well, just come out." Yeah. So there was a lot of lessons
So
learned.
you guys really, you're like, hey, well, let's go. Let's
We just have
just
to
Yeah,
show up. We just have to show up, and if that's all we
yeah.
need. No, 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 no. And so we took a lot from that first one. One thing that we did also get a lot of, because I mean, it's the first market, right? And so we feel great about the product. I mean, we focus grouped it, but full transparency, whenever you focus group something, you want to focus group it with people that you don't know, that you don't know, and they don't know you, and they don't know you're the owner. And we didn't do that. And so our first, I guess, like focus grouping was we had a tasting, and it was all friends and family. Of course, they're like, "Oh man, it's great. Oh, this is so good, yeah." And so, in the back of my mind, I always thought like, "Well, people love it, but I know them, and they know me." So I was kind of nervous about that. And I will say, although for all the things that we had that we wish we'd have done differently at our first market, seeing the reaction of the first person try it and say, "Oh wow!" I remember that we actually had a person that came by and said, I this is the cleanest or this is the purest tepache I've ever had. We've had, I've actually had situations too where, I remember this one. We were at a market off of Houston Street, and this little viejita, this little old lady comes by, and she saw tepache, so she got excited. She came up, and she asked to try it, and so she tried it, and she started crying because it reminded her so much of her mother, and I remember, I'm not gonna lie, man. Sorry, I gave it on the house. I was like, hey, just take this one, enjoy it. And it's also, I mean, it's a wonderful feeling to see people who know what tapache is and have a nostalgic connection, especially to loved ones. For the longest time, when people would tell us what they thought it tastes like, it was always a memory. It wasn't necessarily a flavor. So we never had someone said, "Oh, it tastes like pineapple," blah blah blah. It was always like, oh, it reminds me of my grandmother. It reminds me of my aunt. It reminds me of my dad. It reminds me of going home for the holidays. It reminds me of, I mean, we had people telling us in the summertime, it reminds me of spending time with my family during Christmas, stuff like that. And
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
the first farmers market was a lot of lessons learned, but also at the same time, it was kind of proof to us that this was as special as we thought it was. I think it is.
So you got the validation that
Yes,
that you were onto something.
yes, most
Yeah.
definitely. And so just kept going at that point and just said, okay, so we know we have a lot of things we need to like work on, things that we can get better on. Start jotting those down and let's figure it out.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, and I think for me, it was how to talk about the product to people. Some people wanted to know about, the tapache itself because they know it from Mexico. Like Kevin said, hey, my mom used to make this, my aunt used to make this. And so we talked to them about how we make tapache. Yeah, we get pineapple rinds, from fruit processors. We only use 6 core ingredients. It's as authentic as you can. Some people wanted to know about the sugar content,
Hmm.
right? How many calories does it have? What's the functional benefits here? And so being able to understand every minute detail about the product was important for us, and for us to be able to talk to different people in different ways. So really knowing your audience, right? Some people wanted to understand the functionality. How is this not alcoholic if it's fermented? Well, let me tell you, and then we start going into our spiel. Um, what's the calorie count? It's 90 calories. Even though it tastes sweet, it's because we use monk fruit. We cut the sweetness out. So just different ways of telling what the Puro Tepache is. I think that was a big takeaway for us. And when we demo it, like when we go to the Pullman market, I kind of have those little 5-second snippets. And as people engage with me, I get to know what it is that they're actually looking for out of the Puro Tepache tasting. And so understanding, the different things, different narratives that I have to understand all simultaneously. I think that was a big takeaway for all of the in-person events that we've done.
Yeah. Uh, how much of that do you think um, was, being physically in front of you learn from being physically in front of customers and interacting with customers?
I think for me, it's you got to be in front of your customers.
Mhm.
If you think you can do this as being a keyboard warrior and really understanding what your clients want, it's not possible, right? I don't know. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I think starting out when we first started kind of talking to people about the product, I mean, it was one of those like a lot of ums, a lot of uhs, a lot of well, it's but, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. So if you do it one time, like I did not feel that. Just keep that in your mind. Okay, well, what could I have done better? And then you do it again, and then you do it again, and you do it again, and then on I you know and the thousandth time, one, I guarantee you just keep doing it, you're gonna get that one like, ooh, okay, no, that was good, okay. And then you're like, how do I do that again? How do I get that magic again? And then you do it again, you do it again, and then before you know it, it's like clockwork. You're just moving. And I'm not gonna lie, you start feeling yourself a little bit. You're like, yeah, oh yeah. You start getting your spiel down. You're like, oh yeah. You just start shooting off, and then you start getting that audience going. And then when they see you feeling it, then they start feeling it, and then they're like, it starts drawing more. You see, like, he's getting all excited, right? And so, and so, people start coming in, then they try it, and then before you know, you got a buzz going, and like, people are like, when you sell out, you're like, oh, I'm out. And so, I think it's natural for people who are creative, who create something new, to be a little more, what's what I'm looking for. So they tend to be more introverted, so it tends to be a little bit harder for them to go out there and to get in front of people and to sell. But it's critical. I mean, you also, not only will you get in front of people and master your skill set in terms of talking, but you'll also develop those like micro relationships where in those micro relationships in those few moments you'll get feedback, and then you take that feedback and you kind of store it, you tally it. You hear that feedback enough and you're like, okay, I think there's something there. And so now you take your limited resources and start investigating. Okay, what can I do? Um,
Mhm.
in terms of like, how do I tweak these micro things to make those changes, and then before you know it, your product's getting better. So not only you getting better, your product's getting better. You just keep it up long enough, and then the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and I
I
think
love
as an
it.
entrepreneur, another tendency might be to overreact or to uh, always be knee jerk. Hey, somebody told me, for instance, one thing that we hear at times is, "Oh wow, this is really sweet." And early on in our journey, I was concerned about that because I would hear that maybe one out of every 100 people.
Yeah,
And so I would tell Kevin, hey, we might need to think about cutting back on the sweetener. But what Kevin told me was, but 99 out of 100 think it's great. Some people just don't like the sweetness in it. And so as an entrepreneur, not overreacting, don't overcorrect, right? Those what Kevin said about the micro points, right? They're like data points, and you only react to the data points when they become trends.
yeah,
If I had started
Mhm.
having half of the people telling me, "Wow, this is really sweet," now 50% of our potential clients think it might be sweet. Now we might have to cut it down or think about changing the flavor profile. as an entrepreneur, your product, your service is not going to be for 100% of all people. And you just kind of have to accept that reality and know that, you know, you gotta find your niche, or you gotta find what your clientele is, but 100% is not going to happen. We are not going to achieve 100% penetration in the Tepache market, and that's okay. What we are trying to do is have the best tasting Tepache in our eyes, the most authentic Tepache. And if we get 80% of the Tepache market, great. That's 80%. I'd rather have all of that than constantly be overcorrecting and having a product that's always in flux.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. And I'm curious, when y'all went into it, were you thinking, the whole beverage market was your market, or were you thinking, or were you very intentional about, no, like, we have this niche that we're targeting, and we're really going to focus our efforts and our energy on that niche?
Yeah, no, full transparency. When we did our original business plan and looking at markets, we were trying to get a feel for, okay, well, what market should we really kind of go after? Because it's a fermented beverage. So for us, and I think I walked around multiple grocery stores, and the way I kind of look at it, okay, where does my product best fit in this grocery store? And so, yeah, you can walk down the soda aisle, and that's great, but my product can never live in that soda aisle because it's a fermented product, and because it's a fermented product, those soda aisles typically aren't refrigerated. So like the same place you find a 12 pack of Coke, the same place you find a 12 pack of Sprite, you'll never really be able to find, unless some new technology comes out, you'll never be able to really find a 12 pack of Puro Tepache there, because we need that refrigeration. So then you kind of walk around a little bit more. Okay, well, where can we live? And luckily for us, there's also other tepaches out there, and that we're able to say, okay, where do they live? And so seeing where they live, and then understanding, okay, this is where they're currently at. Typically, if you go to like HEB or like Sprouts, you'll find them in like the ready to go grab areas. So they're usually sold in singles. So kind of getting a feel for, okay, so this is where my product would live. So these are the markets I kind of want to look at in terms of how do we compare against like other functional beverages. Um, when going into this, we were not going into this because we felt like functional beverages are taking off or anything like that. We were actually going into this looking, okay, we feel like we have a very good product. We feel that it's very authentic, and that was the goal. Is like we want to create the most authentic tepache that somebody from Mexico is here and had it growing up. They can't find it, and so now they can find it. Or somebody who's looking to reconnect with their culture, who's looking for authentic tepache, can find it. So we just so happen to find like, oh, there's other tepaches out there. How do they kind of match up? And we've actually done like a couple of taste tests, and we feel like we hit a home run. I mean, more than I think like 70% preferred ours. So really great stuff. Once we did some research in the functional beverage market, one of the things that we then found was that what are people who are looking for functional beverages looking for in a product? Are they looking for numbers, or are they looking for ingredients? Because you can have great numbers, but it's full of just like chemicals, things like that. Or you can have pure ingredients, which won't have the best numbers, but you have an authentic, pure product. And so we had to make a tough decision at that point, looking at, okay, who do we want to be? And we know that we started this business to create a pure, authentic product, and we're going to stick to our guns in terms of creating a pure, authentic product. So that's why you'll always find piloncillo in our products, which is an indigenous raw sugar cane that is found in central Mexico and always used in tepache. So, like making decisions like that, it's a differentiating factor for us. At the same
Hmm.
time, we know that not all people who are looking for functional beverages are okay with piloncillo. But for us, because of its cultural identity and ensuring that we're using authentic ingredients, for us it's important that we have Balancio. But yeah, I mean, I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
definitely. So, I was gonna say, so the, I mean, the beverage industry is a beast. And a lot of the beverage companies, I mean, they control wide swaths of the market. There's so many different types of beverages too, so many different niches. So, we heard you use the term functional beverage a few times. So, can you just describe what the functional beverage market is?
Yeah. So, I usually tell people like way back when it was okay just to have a great tasting product. And then kind of fast forwarded to like the 80s and 90s, you started seeing low calorie products. And then fast forwarding it to today, people are expecting more from their consumables that they have. And so if you have an individual that's saying, "Hey, I'm thirsty, I want something that tastes great, but I also want something that kind of does more than just taste great." And so that's kind of where the functional beverage market kind of just exploded. Now, there's different kinds of functional beverages. There's probiotics, there's prebiotics, and there's different ingredients that provide that functionality. Some ingredients provide things like enzymes or different kind of minerals and things like that. Um, Tepache itself has always been a functional beverage, even before functional beverages were considered like on the up and up. Like Emmanuel said, it's the original Aztec soda. It's a beverage that it's been providing probiotic benefits since before the Spanish even showed up in Mexico. And so, with it being a functional beverage, it's kind of a plus on top of it being just an authentic beverage in itself. Do you want to add anything
Mhm.
to that, Emmanuel?
Yeah, I know, and I think the way we're trying to educate our market about our potential market about Tepache is really just telling the story of its roots. Why we are so dead set on creating an authentic, pure product, and the functionality is, like Kevin said, just gravy. It's just a bonus. But
Mm,
when you look at, like, for us, yes, you're right. The beverage market is a beast, and it costs money to play at that level and to be in large retail. And so, the thing that Kevin and I constantly are talking about and entrepreneurs need to be thinking about is strategically, how do we reach more people without having to utilize those precious resources? And so for us, it was going into smaller mom and pop type shops, restaurants. But then, hopefully in January, what we're gearing ready to do is launching our e-commerce. And so, you know, direct to consumer allows people, we don't have to, I mean, we're not really needing them to educate in a storefront what Tepache is. If people are searching for Tepache online and they find us on our website, it's because they're looking for it. And so if we're able to provide that product, and we get a lot of hits on our either email or social media. Do you ship to Chicago? Do you ship to Phoenix? Do you ship to Los Angeles? Do you ship to Arkansas? Anywhere that Mexican market right now is at, they are looking for products that they remember from back home. And so I think that our next growth is going to be with e-commerce. And then, eventually I think we'll get to the point where we then can play, at least at a regional level, into larger retail. And so those are the kind of just the things that we're looking at. But it is going to need to be in that refrigerated grab and go type of environment because of our products characteristics and properties that we have.
yeah, so that's interesting. E-commerce poses some different logistical challenges for you then, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the thing Kevin and I have been grappling with for the
Yeah.
last 3 months.
Yeah.
What is the right size container, right?
Hmm.
How many gel packs do we need? Overnight shipping is very expensive, but 2 day shipping is doable. So yeah, those logistics things are the things that we have to consider. But
Yeah.
I think we cracked it. We've cracked the nut, right? And so we'll see how Q1 of 2025 goes once we launch it.
Yep.
We're going to launch Texas wide first, and then after we see how it goes. So people in the Valley, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, who have been reaching out to us, they'll be able to buy it come January, and then after that, it's going to be nationwide. And then it's Kevin and I have to have that conversation about how do we how do we feed that beast.
Yeah. Okay. And I think the biggest thing that we wanted to make sure when doing our research and doing our due diligence with the logistics side is it's not just enough to get the product there, but we have to ensure that we get the product there at the quality that we know that people deserve.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like quality has been a focus of yours from the get go, from the first horrible 30 batches.
Yeah.
But you persisted. You kept going,
Yes.
man.
Yeah.
So that that has to be passion, right?
Yeah. That thankfully my family was okay eating that much pineapple.
So I want to talk a little bit about what was a, a a mistake that y'all made that um like at the time that you thought was like really huge, and how did your pivot, how did that change your path, or what was the result of that mistake?
I know of a couple, Kevin. I don't know if you want
What?
me to go.
Yeah, one stuck out in my mind. I don't know if you remember when we made it was like 80 gallons of product, and then we had the fridge went out. Do you remember that? And then we ended up
Oh yeah, no, that's a really good one. Yeah, I didn't even think
yeah.
about that one,
So
but
that's the
okay, yeah.
first one that came to
Talk
my
about
mind.
that one.
So we had we had an event that was coming up. I think it was at La Cantera at the Rock.
Yep.
At the time in terms of manufacturing, the idea was, hey, we have all these kegs, let's fill them all up, so we have this live inventory, and then we can pull as we need it, and that way we're always have inventory ready to go. And it made sense. And I was like, cool, and we have this walk-in fridge, and we're good. And we came in that day for the event. We pulled like two kegs, and we always QC our kegs or anything that we do before we actually go out to these events, just to make sure that it's a product that we feel confident that we would want it. We would like to share with our families, and we want to make sure that we share it with the community as well. And so we tried them, and then the thing about fermented products is that if they don't stay at a cold temperature, then they start fermenting again, and it doesn't make them unsafe to drink, but it's kind of like you're drinking like a really funky. It's oof, I mean they can turn vinegar over time. So we tried it, and it's like it was wolf, like it like cleared the senses and or the sinuses. I was like, whoa, okay. So we put those to the side, and then we tried, another two kegs, and same thing. Tried another two kegs, and same thing. And so then from there, there's the individuals that we were renting the walk-in fridge from. We reached out to them, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we had a power outage for like 2 days." I was like, "Oh, okay." So at that point, we realized we just lost 80. Like, we lost all of our inventory, and we were just
Oh
starting
man.
out, and that was actually our first one of our first big events. And so I think we sat there. We were trying to.
Wait, so what did you do?
I mean, before we canceled it, we tried to think of anything that we could do. Like, is there anything that we can salvage to go out there? And it wasn't. And unless we were willing to sacrifice, like we said, our quality, which we're not willing to do. So yeah, I mean, I had to reach out. We had to cancel the event. Let them know that we couldn't make it out there. We apologized. And then we spent the day. We had to get rid of 80 gallons, so it was not only just pouring that out, but also cleaning and disinfecting. And then we had to change our ideology of start taking a more of a risk based approach in terms of how we determine all of our decisions in terms of how we manage our product in terms of storage. So yes, we could create, make 80 gallons, and yes, we could keep that in there. But is it, one of the things we can't control is what happens if our fridge goes down. Is knowing that it's happened once, how we don't know how often this happens, especially because it's something we rent. Um, so that's why we then pivoted as like, we need to be made to make the order that ensures the quality of our product, that ensures that we're having the best tasting product and the freshest product, and also that de-risks it for us. So yes, there is that possibility that we could still lose product, but we only make enough product for what we know we're going to need within the next like week or so. And so if we do lose product, instead of losing 80, 160 gallons worth of product, we lose maybe like 10 gallons. So the financial hit is nowhere near as bad. But it's gotten us to the point that we're almost make to order. And now when we look at our manufacturing processes, we're always looking for opportunities to say, how can we optimize and streamline our processes to make the product that we're looking even quicker, but have the same high quality. And it's helping us like get quicker and better understand like our manufacturing's pros and cons, and how do we mitigate the cons as much as possible. Was there anything you want to add to that, Emmanuel?
Yeah, I think as an output of that also wasn't just how we managed inventory and how we took a just in time approach, but also it was the process itself.
Oh yeah,
And Kevin reformulated the process so that if we wanted to make 80 gallons of product, we could make 80 gallons of product, but it would be unfermented. And then we would only need to ferment what we needed for the subsequent, orders or
Mm.
event. Before it was opposite. We would ferment at the front end. Well, then once you ferment, you have to store refrigerated. So you couldn't kind of create a inventory of product. So Kevin really kind of reformulated the thinking, and that was that risk based approach. Was okay, if the fridge is a risk point, a failure point for us, how do we totally get that out of the equation so that the failure point isn't as big of a hit for us? And so for him, it was reformulating the process entirely. And so like it's just as an entrepreneur, understanding the lessons learned, but then taking action on what you've learned, right?
yeah,
It's not going to just be like, well, this is a risk we have to accept. No, identify that failure point and mitigate the risk
yeah.
completely. That's something that you
You
can do.
you're gonna fail. You're always gonna like. There's always gonna happen, right? You can't not fail, especially if you're trying to do something new. So my thing is, if you're gonna fail, fail fast, fail forward. And so get over it quickly,
Yeah,
learn how you failed, and then keep moving forward.
that's really good. And a great illustration of like it's constant, right? It's a constant ex- learning and adapting, and so there is no simple, easy, straightforward path. It's learning and adapting the entire
Absolutely.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good. All right, so what's been your proudest milestone so far?
Oh man. Um, I think for me it was, and it's more of a manufacturing side, but I said this very early on, so I don't know if you remember this, Emmanuel, but I think some people can live in the abstract, and some people have to live in the like they actually have to be able to touch things. And so I told him a long time ago, it's crazy when we're brewing, we're drinking this, and I can imagine, I can feel the can in my hand, and I know it doesn't, it doesn't exist in the real world, but I can feel it, I can see it, and I know I can hear the crack when I open it. It's there. And I say stuff like that. People were like, this guy's crazy, and so I'm like, it is what it is. And so, for me, the proudest moment was the very first time that we got everything in there, and I was able to fill the very first cans, and then being able to give that to Emmanuel, and then I don't know if you
Mhm.
remember that I gave it to you, and like I was like, yes, I was proud, I was very excited, but I felt like it wasn't the first time I saw that can. It wasn't the first time I held that can. To me, I felt like I've always held that can since I first thought of it. But the proudest moment for me is when I got to see Emmanuel hold that can for the first time, and then seeing his eyes light up, because I was like, I know that feeling. That's the feeling I had, and so it was always real. It just had to prove it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a cool moment. And I know Kevin was waiting for that because afterwards he was like, man, I've been waiting to give you that can.
Yeah, you got
um,
there like 6 months.
yeah, I think for me, it was a little after that, maybe about 2 months later. And we had gotten into the vegan taco place downtown, Plant Taqueria. And she had just bought a beverage refrigerator, and she was filling it with all of the grab and go beverages. But I remember I took my wife to breakfast there because their breakfast tacos, by the way, are phenomenal. If y'all guys are in downtown, Plant Taqueria is awesome. Um, I remember sitting there and looking at the fridge and seeing Topo Chicos, seeing Coca Colas, seeing Jarritos, and then seeing Puro Tepache. And for me to see our product, right, next to those juggernaut products was just it was overwhelming. I got emotional in front of my wife, and I was just like I I knew we would get there. I just didn't know when and how we would get there. And anytime I do see the product like at the Pullman Market and it's next to all these other selections, and I see somebody reach for ours, man, I get chills still.
Yeah, that's awesome. That I mean, seeing that vision that you had actually become a reality,
Mhm.
that's powerful.
Yep, absolutely. And it's what drives, I think, what drives us continuously. It's as an entrepreneur, you want people to like your product as much as you like it. You want people to revere it. Um, and for us, like I always tell people, I mean, we pour our heart and soul into every can. I mean, literally, we can it ourselves, and we have when we're canning, like we take such meticulous time to make sure things are being done well. And I feel like Kevin and I will always have that sense of responsibility to the quality of the product because uh, you know it just takes one time to make a bad impression. And so I want to make sure that every time somebody drinks Puro Tepache, that they say to themselves, "Wow, that's a really good drink," because then they'll buy it the next time. And even though there's some slight variability because it is artisanal and pineapple rinds may have fluctuations, it will be as consistent every time we brew it as we can because we've taken out all of the variability that we can.
Love it. I got one more question for you. Um, and that is, um, and I think you talked about this a little bit with, going into e-commerce, but what's the next sort of milestone or big vision that you have for Puro Tepache?
I know Kevin's got his. So um, I'll just go. Like the reason I'm big on e-commerce is I want to see people outside of San Antonio be able to enjoy Puro Tepache. I get so much because I run the social media. I get so much interaction from Houston, the Valley, Austin. They're all asking me when is it coming here, and we are trying to make partnerships out in those areas, but distribution is something that we're still trying to figure out because it's a refrigerated product, and so I really want to see people outside of San Antonio be able to experience Puro Tepache, enjoy Puro Tepache. So that I think is the next milestone I want to see is outside of San Antonio. So, but Kevin, I think you could probably talk about what's next on the manufacturing side.
Yeah, no, expansion, right? So we're still under 1 barrel per batch size. What we're finally seeing is the demand that would necessitate growth. And right now, although for us, I know in terms of like breweries, it's not massive, but for us, it's a big footprint increase. We're looking at doing between a 2.5 and a 5 barrel. With that being said, being able to expand also into getting commercial sized fermenters, and then also to get an automated canning line. So one of the things that in order for us to save in terms of resources, like in terms of saving money, is that a lot of our processes are manual. Although they're great, we're able to like in terms of the size, it's not a big deal. But as going a little more automated, it does open us up to having more resources in terms of like working on more sales, marketing, and stuff like that. So definitely expansion in that realm, and then with that provides more product. That product then we can also start approaching larger retailers. Um, Also opening up to more partnerships. So early last year, approaching co-packers with those minimum order quantity sizes was unrealistic because we just didn't know if the demand was there. Now that we know the demand is growing and getting into these major retailers, we can also work with smaller co-packers in San Antonio to provide that business for them, and also to help us grow our production. As long as we can maintain the quality at the high level that we expect, then there should be no problems in terms of working with these co-packers. We also have the e-commerce store that's opening up. Like Emmanuel said, I think you hit on that very well. This January is going to be Texas, but before the end of the year, hopefully before the end of the third quarter, my goal is to get it nationwide. And then also working with our suppliers. Ninos has been amazing. They've been able to offer us pineapple rinds hand over foot. but we also want to make sure, like, hey, diversify that a little bit, as in case there's opportunities there to help out more people. One thing that we didn't mention is that we're also going to be in publication with Texas Highway Magazine, which is going to be in April, I believe. Also, ensuring that we have the ability for people all throughout Texas to be able to purchase Puro Tepache is critical to have it all done well before April to make sure we're good to go. And that's just what we know about. I mean, being an entrepreneur, you get opportunities, right? And you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Don't be surprised if you start seeing us branching out, working with other individuals, and then we've also seen an increase in our co-packing demand. So making sure our equipment's always running. And who knows? I think one of the things that we'll have to seriously talk about is bringing on our first headcount and start growing the company that way in 2025.
And then the last thing is new flavors, new SKUs.
Yeah.
The original Tepache is great, but we hear from people, oh, I'm allergic to pineapple. So being able to create a non-pineapple Tepache, and the great thing about the process that Kevin has perfected, so you can actually anything that has a rind can be turned into a Tepache. And so, what other products might be significant? So, in Texas, we grow a lot of watermelon. So, maybe a watermelon tapache. Also, the ruby red grapefruit down in the valley, right, is another Texas product. So, maybe what does a grapefruit tapache look like? And so, Kevin and I have just been kind of talking through like what is culturally significant for us in Texas and can also have a flavor profile that people are looking for. Our traditional tapache does taste like fall in a cup or Christmas in a cup. Well, the fiesta time, what's more fiesta than maybe like cucumber and watermelon and tahine, right? Or, another type of flavor profile with grapefruit. What does that look like? And so we're seriously looking at an additional 2 SKUs in 2025.
Yeah, wow. And multiple SKUs, retailers love that, right? So they want to see multiple SKUs. Um,
Absolutely.
well, it certainly sounds like y'all have a lot of really exciting stuff coming up. To 2025 is the year of expansion. What's uh, just one thought or word of encouragement that you can give to other entrepreneurs out there? Maybe they're just starting, maybe they are thinking about starting, they have an idea but they don't know how to start. What what do you say to those?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just don't give up. It's believe in your product, seek feedback, as much feedback as you can. Find a community, whether that's a industry group or mentors that are already in the industry that you're trying to penetrate into. But just don't give up. You're going to have challenges. You're going to encounter uh, things that you feel will be defeating, but you can't. It's kind of like that whole mentality of like when you're going through something physical, right? And you think that your body is at its end point. You're climbing a mountain or whatever. Your body still has juice in the tank. You just have to untap that in your mind. You have to get across that barrier in your mind that says I want to give up. And so it's trying to be resilient, and just continue to push on through. And if you can do that, luckily Kevin and I kind of help each other in that aspect. There are times when I'm particularly down, and Kevin's the one that's no, we got to do this, we got to do that, and then just vice versa. And so being able to have somebody like that has been invaluable. And so if you're a solopreneur such as yourself, Keith, try to find someone who can play that role. And that's where I think finding a mentor or finding a good partner might be something that can help out.
Yeah, I think on my end, the biggest thing is it's gonna sound a little corny, but love, right? And it's one thing to be an entrepreneur for the money, but it's another thing to be an entrepreneur because you love what either service or product that you're making. Because I can guarantee you that if you're in it just for the money, you're gonna hit so many hardships that you're just gonna tap out. But if you genuinely love what you're doing, if you genuinely love your mission, if you love what you designed your services or products to problems to solve, then there's nothing that can be thrown at you that'll make you say like, hey, it's not worth it. Because if you love in your heart what you're doing, then you're gonna love the products or services you're providing, and so that love's gonna push you through a lot. And so just lean onto that, and then you're gonna be all right. And like Amanda said, reach out to support systems, whether that be family, friends, other entrepreneurs, because there are people who are going through what you're going or have gone through what you're going, and they're there. They're actively there to help you, because I guarantee you there are people that help them, and there's always that willingness to pay it forward. So don't be scared to reach out. Even if you think that like, hey, this is my competitor and they don't want to talk to me, you'd be surprised. Like there's people that will reach out. I think Element Kombucha reaches out to me I talk to them here and there, and they have great feedback. And that's one of the individuals that we'd love to just like work with in terms of co-packing. But yeah, don't be scared to reach out for help, because there's always going to be someone there that's willing to.
Yeah. Community.
Mm-hmm.
Find your
Yep,
community, right?
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah.
Um, tell us how can folks follow you, get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the easiest way is you go on our website, www.purotepache.com, and you can sign up for we have a emailer that goes out about once a week. We try to send out at least once a week. But then also you can link up to our social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook. I mean, I'm sorry, Instagram, Facebook. Kevin wants the YouTube account. That's why I said that. Uh, and then on Instagram and Facebook, just follow us. I try to post at least, once every couple of days, or a story or something like that. But you can definitely see what we're up to. We're very open and transparent. So go to our website first. There you can find where we are also sold at, and then hit up our Cheeseman blog, because as entrepreneurs, we've also been feeding what we've been doing through our Cheeseman blog, and that's been kind of a good outlet for us to be able to decompartmentalize what we're going through, and put it down into words. So yeah, that's the easiest way is through our website.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for taking the time to speak with us today and to share your journey of entrepreneurship and to encourage those others that might be looking to do the same thing.
Yeah. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us,
We
man.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.